1 o'clock in the afternoon on August 22nd, 2012. And we're in Champlain, no matter what you say. We're not going to have an argument again. Paul LaPierre, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm Tony. Tony.
Yep.
Anthony.
Paul Anthony.
Paul Anthony LaPierre.
Yes.
I'll get it right. But we don't have to call you all those names, right, do we?
No.
As long as they don't call you late to dinner, as
That's
my
right.
mother used to say. We're at a place called the Rusty Creek Farm. And this place was, even though it's hopping almost every day with lots of things to do that farmers often have to accomplish, a couple of days ago on the 20th, you had all kinds of traffic in and out of here.
Yes, we did.
What was that all about?
It was called Day on the Farm. I'm active in the Clinton County Farm Bureau, and it's been quite some time since we did a fundraiser or activity to help sponsor the Farm Bureau to operate over the course of the year. So we decided to bring that Day of the Farm back and have it here at Rusty Creek.
Why not do the first ever back again here, huh? That's great. There hasn't been one in a while.
No. Talking with elder statesmen, it's been about 35 years or so since we've done.
I must be an elder statesman because I remember those days.
Yeah.
I remember touring the farms of distinction back in the days. Remember that?
Yes. Yep.
Various farms, going around and trying to judge the farms, and
Yep.
that was nice. That was nice back in those days.
Yes,
too.
yes. There was a lot of the smaller farms that were big into the registered cattle, often applied for those dairies of distinction, and then, like you say, they would have tours or days on the farm where people would visit. Yeah.
I bet you a lot of our viewers don't know about your farm up here in the corner of the world, and they should. And that's why Calvin and I from Hometown Cable and our little corner are here today on this beautiful sunshiny summer day, one of many that we've had this year, to learn about this farm, which has been in your family not 6 generations. Is that possible?
Yeah, well, my children are the 6th generation.
Are they really?
Yeah, they are, and if they so choose to continue it on, it'll be 6 generations that we've been operating as a farm of some sort. Yeah.
So starting what year?
Well, it's during the 1850s is when the Beaucaire family, which is my mother's family, originated right here in Coopersville and settled right over here. And they bought a tract of land. We've got, the deeds from way back.
Wow.
For very simple deeds. From there, they had about a 60-acre farm. About 30 of that was woods, and they started with a lot of little different things. Not only did they have cattle and hogs and sheep and all that, but they also trapped and hunted and cut ice on the lake, and they had a little general store around the corner here in Cooperville where they brought those goods in to market to the local people.
A lot of things were done on a handshake in those days. I'll bet you some of those old deeds are just very simple, aren't they?
Very simple. Word was good. And,
yeah, isn't that amazing?
the fence post in this corner and that corner. Yeah, yes.
And an old tree over there on a rock somewhere in a field. And so why Rusty Creek?
Well, Caribou Creek, which goes through Coopersville, that name was already taken at the time. Caribou Creek was already listed, and there's a high iron content in the water. So if you were to notice or look in the local river, it's a very rusty looking type water, and the stones and what have you around there are that color. So hence Rusty Creek Farm.
When did it actually get the name officially?
Officially was when my father took over the farm, and that would have been in the late 50s.
Your dad's name is?
Paul Roland LaPierre. Yes.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yep.
It's so confusing to me. Is any of the old house still inside those walls somewhere?
Oh yeah.
Is it really?
Definitely.
Some of the original houses in there?
Top, on the outside, you can see the old dinner bell up there.
Oh my gosh! Come
And
on.
that's where that was the summer kitchen right there.
Oh my God!
And when
from the middle 1800s.
Yes, and
Wow.
where we're standing right now is where the original farmstead was. And the folks, my great-great-grandmother, when it was dinner time, the bell rang and you finished up what you were doing and you went in for dinner. Yep.
Is it that incredible? The farm has grown a lot since then, though, right?
It has a little bit every generation. In order for the farm to succeed and move on, each generation has done something in their own way to either diversify their income or expand on something they're already doing here.
We've talked about it so many times. The size of farms has changed for the most part here in the North Country, and we have some mega farms. You're not quite in that category yet, even though you have 800 head?
Yes, we have 800 head. We crop about 1,000 acres. We're considered what you would call a medium-sized farm. Yeah.
That's a lot bigger than the medium-sized farms, even some of the big farms when Calvin and I were young people.
Yeah.
But you have to do it that way.
You do. If you're going to focus on strictly dairy, I've chose to go a larger path. We have 7 full-time employees, and we have 3 and 4 part-time employees in the summertime to help bring in crops, and this enables us not to enables us to have a little more time, flexibility to do other things, as opposed to maybe being here 24/7 every day
But you
of the
still
week.
spend a lot of
Yeah,
time.
you do spend a lot of time. Anybody that's self-employed is gonna put in definitely more than a 40-hour work week. If you're gonna be successful in business, and regardless of what it is, you put in a lot more than a regular 40-hour work week.
It is a real business.
Yes, it sure is. It sure is. We we monitor everything from how production of our animals to a production of our fields and our crops, and weights and heights and all that stuff is taken into account so that we can monitor how either good or bad we're doing and make adjustments accordingly.
Farm bureaus always have been a big help. Have you always been in the Farm Bureau?
I've been very active in Farm Bureau for the last 20 years or so. What they are basically is the voice of agriculture in New York State, and New York State looks at the Farm Bureau for guidance or answers. They respect their opinion, and it helps them vote yay or nay one way or the other on what's maybe important or not important out there in legislation.
So before we got here a couple of days ago, you had to visit the Farm Day thing with the Farm Bureau, and was there a nice crowd?
There was. It was. We had great weather that really helped a lot, and I want to say, if I was guessing, probably right around 300 people or so.
Oh, isn't that neat?
Yeah. So we had a great turnout, a little bit for everybody. We had hayride tours, and
I heard you had music and all kinds of stuff.
there was some music. Yep, and good food, and
Sorry I missed the good food. That's a big thing with me. But it was a good day for everybody.
yeah, it was. It was successful. We had lots of hands to help out from the board members, and also area vendors and area farmers that pitched in to make it a lot easier than what it could have been.
So after 6 generations, how many members of your family actually spend time here working?
My father is retired, but still active. Very much involved in wanting to know what the day-to-day outlook is. He spends time. He may go get parts for us or that kind of thing. But as far as actual family members, I'm basically the I'm the managing partner of the business, and then I have my 2 sons. One's in college and one's in high school. That help me also as far as on the family aspect. But we rely heavily on our employees. We got a real good labor base here. A lot of guys that were originally from farms born and brought up on farms that maybe are no longer operating, but still enjoyed the farming aspect of it and have come to work for us.
That's terrific. How bad or good has the weather affected you this summer? We've had an exceptional summer in many ways.
We have. We've been fortunate in Clinton County. I want to say for the most part, at least the northern end, it has been a little bit dry, but compared to the rest of the country, our crops are looking pretty decent. So we're pretty happy with that. Yeah.
I love it. So you're going to show us around. We're going to see what this place is all about today.
Yeah.
What do you say we take a quick tour?
Okay, here? That sounds like a plan.
Let's do it. I hear the sound of tractors in the background. Tony LaPierre at the Rusty Creek Farm up here in Champlain. I'm so glad we finally got up here to see you, buddy boy.
Well, thank you.
This is a beautiful spot. We're looking over Vermont, relatively clear day. There wasn't a cloud in the sky when I got up before 6. Now just a few up there. Not enough to bother us one bit.
No, nice day out there today.
You know, I want to talk a little bit about how feed is stored and what a difference there was between even the time you were a little boy, let alone when we were young people. So talk a little bit about what we're looking at here.
Well, what we have behind us is what we call horizontal bunk silos, and in order to feed cows the amount of cows that we have today, it's virtually impossible to put up large amounts of dry baled hay. This is something that isn't new. When I was growing up, we used to have what you call the vertical silo, where you took a blower and you blew the silage up in there. But they developed a way with these horizontal silos to pack the feed in these what we call concrete bunks. And what happens is we chop the feed into dump trucks, and they back into these bunks, and they dump it in there. Then we take a tractor with a blade, and we push that up the green chop into layers, and we pack all the air out of it, and we keep doing that till we get full, or we get to the end of the acreage that we're harvesting, and we need to cap off the bunk. And what we do is to preserve it is put this plastic over the top, and then we put tires on top of that to hold the plastic down and to seal out the rest of the air.
So how many bunkers?
So we have 7 bunkers, and on a normal year we'll put up about 10,000 tons of silage, and about half of that.
Beyond what I can even fathom. 10,000 tons.
Yeah. Half of that is corn silage, and the other half is a hay crop silage. And we get four cuttings of hay crop over the year, and then the 1 cut of corn in the fall.
So no more bales?
We do have a small amount of bales, and we utilize that in right here. This is our TMR mixer. We have scales on there, and we have 8 different batch sheets for different groups of animals.
Isn't that amazing?
And so some of those groups call for some dry hay for some effective scratch fiber. And so we have a commodity barn that's over on the other side where we store that hay.
These are phrases and procedures that didn't even exist when I was a young guy. But you have to do it, don't you? It's
become quite a science. We have a nutritionist that visits the farm on a weekly basis and makes recommendations. We're constantly checking our moisture levels of our feed, and if we noticed maybe the cows are leaving more feed today, why is that? Usually it's because there's a change in the moisture, so we will test it and make adjustments accordingly. And then, everything is balanced for different level of protein and energy and amino acids. So it's pretty scientific on how we have to feed the animals today.
These original family members that go back to the mid-1800s would be horrified if they could see the way you do business now, wouldn't they?
Well, I think we're just what it amounts to is we're really focusing in on making our animals as productive as they can be, and by doing that, providing them the proper nutrition and really concentrating on what on making them comfortable, they return us back by producing more milk. So
I'd like to go back a few years, and this is the same scenario you're going to try to replicate with your own kids someday. Why did you make that decision? Or did your dad put the leverage on you and say, hey?
Oh, no. Actually, just the opposite. There were never any...
You always wanted to be a farmer?
I like the process of it. We also have registered animals where it's competitive, where we go to different fairs and show animals, and I really enjoyed that part of it. So that spurred me on to it, and then so I decided to get a college education.
Where'd you go?
I went to Cornell University.
Of course you did.
And from there, that prepared me to, run the farm as a business. And not to say there wasn't some bumps along the way, but
a couple of lean years here and there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But we were able to, from that experience, I think we're able to do a little better job with our animals.
That's great. So you have a good relationship with Cornell then, even these days, I bet.
I do. I'm very active in the alumni. Actually, my son is a junior there right now.
Oh, see?
So he's getting an education there.
There's a chip off the old farmer. Yeah, yep. That's great.
Yep. And they're one of the leading universities as far as research out there on the latest technology, because it's the technology, just like with everything else, is changing very fast.
You got to get up early to figure out what's on the agenda today. And
it takes a lot of planning, but we like you said, we've got a good workforce, and all our heads together makes it a lot easier as opposed to just me trying to figure it all out.
Calvin, because of his background in farming and me because of mine many years ago, I spent a lot of time talking to and about farms and farmers here in the North Country, and we've cried a lot with some of the guys when the price of milk goes down to the rock bottom and then comes up again. Where is it now as we're doing this in August 2012?
It's at like about a $16.50, $17 range is where it's at, which is higher than what it used to be, but the input cost of buying everything right now is just extremely expensive, and that doesn't even begin to hardly cover what it takes to operate. So you gotta really hold on to the reins in these times, and then when the supply evens out, where the price comes up and gets better, you got to have your plan to move forward and go at it. It's a very volatile business.
Is there a trend this year? Is it?
Well, with the drought right now, you're in the rest of the United States, you're seeing a lot of feed expense being astronomically high.
I can't even believe it.
Yeah.
What it is.
So guys that have to buy a majority of their feed are really, it's really hurting them more than the other people that say produce most of their feeds.
And you do.
We do produce quite a bit of our own feed. We buy some of our supplement protein, but we put up quite a bit of grain, and also we produce all our own forages.
How many acres now, Tony?
We crop about 1,000.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Nice round number, huh?
Yep.
Is it all connected, or do you have pieces of property that are away from the farm?
No, in the office you would see we're pretty spread out. We've got some right here close, and then we've got some as far away as Perry's Mills, which is about 8-10 miles. Everything is we operate with trucks now, so it's not as much of an issue to travel distances to get our feed, but it is more expensive than if everything was nice and close here, right here in Cooperville. But that's part of doing business.
I hope everybody gathers, all the young people in the family, just to see what farmers are all about. When I was a kid, it was Farmer John with his 30 head of Holsteins, and that was it. Nowadays, if you don't have 700-800 head, it's hard to keep your head above water.
Well, if It is and it isn't. I mean, there's still majority of the farms in New York State are right around 100 cow dairies.
Are they really?
They are, and these fellas are very good at what they do. Typically, they don't have a lot of debt. They do most everything themselves, and they also are diversified. They have other incomes, whether it be, say, maple, or they
that's true too, yeah.
cut wood, or they bale hay.
Yeah.
So they're not solely laying, so to speak, all their eggs in one basket to make a living.
So what are other animals do you have? Do you have pigs, chickens?
We don't. A sideline business that we've done are beef. Yes. Yeah.
Is that working?
We're in our 4th year, and our market is growing. We're trying to market that locally, and I think we're at an advantage because we already have the barns and a system into place to raise our dairy animals that kind of makes sense to we can raise beef along with it. So it's putting a few more head in there and a little extension on the barn. We're already going through that process and doing the work, and we're already putting up the feed, and I think we put up a good product.
Was that a tough decision to make?
Not really. Once again, I'm looking for other ways to diversify a little bit. I don't want to just solely depend on, although milk is probably 85% of the income.
Yeah.
We still get some income from grain that we grow and the beef that we sell.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, we started at one end. We got to work our way through. What's next?
Well, we can head up to the freestall barn where the milk cows are.
All right, let's do it. Once again, we're with Tony LaPierre at the Rusty Creek Farm, up in the northern tier of Clinton County. A wonderful, sunshiny August 22nd, and we're going to walk around the barns a little bit, huh?
We are. What we're looking at right here is the backside of the tie stall barn that my father had built, and we converted it over to what our barns are called, a freestall barn. We made a feed alley on the east side and put some curtains up for ventilation, and these cows right here are not lactating right now. They are getting a rest. They're in their rest period and getting ready to have their calves here in another 60 days from now or so, and up in the maternity area, which we'll visit next.
Yeah, you got to have a maternity area, right?
And so this is where they stay and they rest for 60 days before they come in and have a calf and go back to work.
Calvin says, does every cow have a name? And you said no, a number. But that's true. When we're on the farm, the kids named every cotton picking chicken and every pig.
Yeah, a lot of the cows do have names. We still have registered animals, and when we register them, you come up with a name for them. But out of lack of having to think of a name for 800 of them, we've put identification tags in their ears, and then that way there we can look them up on the computer and track them a lot easier that way.
Any of the cattle go to the fair this year?
We did. We brought 5 this year.
Really?
Yep.
Who brought them?
I helped prepare to get them ready, but my youngest son Alec and my niece Connor
wonderful
brought them to the fair as part of their 4-H projects, and then they also showed them in the open show.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Great experience.
Yes, it is. It's a good way to give them some responsibility, taking care of an animal, and that's their project, and getting it ready for the month or 2 months before fair, keeping it clean and learning to walk around the ring with it, and having patience with the animal.
Always patience with the animal.
And so it's a good experience for them.
Calvin and I always, every year, spend a lot of time promoting the ag program at Northern Adirondack School, because there aren't very many ag programs left in North Country schools, and they're great kids and great program down there.
Yes, it is. One thing that New York State's trying to do is promote the ag in the classroom, where you may not necessarily have an ag program like the Northern Adirondacks folks do, but there's different classes throughout the year, maybe 2 or 3 classes where they'll solely focus on agriculture, and there's materials that New York State provides either through FFA or the Farm Bureau to give teachers the information to get out there.
That's a good thing, because agriculture is such a huge part of the fabric of the whole nation, but especially here in the Northeast.
Yeah, huge part of the fabric, and very much, one of the biggest cash receipts in the county.
Yeah.
So, which is also very important. Yep.
It is for you. I know it is. All right, let's take a walk. What do you say? Well, we're inside the barn, Tony. What are we looking at now?
We're looking at the maternity area. Over here we have a area designated for cattle that are due to have their calves in 2 to 3 weeks. That enables us as close to the milking parlor, enables us to keep a close eye out on them, so that if when the time comes for them to have their calves, we're able to assist them if need be in the process. I mean, the animals typically come, front feet first and then with a head, but it always,
every now and again,
it doesn't work out that way. Either a foot or leg will be back, or both feet will be back, or it's coming the opposite direction, and so we've got a little isolated area over here where we get them in over there, and then we're able to assist them to.
Do you do it yourself, or do you have a vet on call, or how does that work?
99% of the time we're able to make it work with the equipment that we have, but there are
always a few surprises.
There are always a few surprises where maybe the calf is really big, or maybe she's having multiple births and they're kind of twisted up. Multiple births are about anywhere from 3 to 6% of the calvings in a year.
No, I did not know that.
So if we have typically we have about 400 calves born a year, so you're looking at probably 20 sets of twins.
Is it always more difficult?
It's usually there's more apt to be complications. Yes. Yeah. The calves in general are a little smaller, but they get twisted up, or they both are trying to come out at the same time, kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you have, about 20 in here?
Yes, there's 20 head in here. It holds. We've got a little bit of a flush of animals to calve right now, so there's a few more in there than normal, but it's typically about a 15 head pen. We give them lots of room to eat. We try to make everything very relaxed in there for them, because it's the most stressful time that they have in their life.
A little more dry food too at this time?
A little more dry food. We've got hay some nice hay in the diet to keep their stomachs nice and full and bulky, so that when that calf comes out, we're less apt to have some digestive upsets where these stomachs may twist or what have you, where we have to have the vet come in and operate on them. So
never-ending process, isn't it? Just go round and around every year.
Every year, and milk about
part of the cycle.
Milk about 305 days, and rest for about 60 days. That's the goal, and 1 calf per year.
So what do we have on the other side here?
And on the other side here is our lactating group. These guys are. This is the main milk herd right now. They're pretty self-sufficient. They've got a silage base feed where they consume about 125 pounds of feed a day.
No kidding. Each one.
Each one.
Those are things that people want to hear. Yeah.
And they drink, in the summertime, they'll drink upwards of 65, 70 gallons of water. But typically they're right around a 40, 45 gallon range per day. Yeah.
I'm not that high yet, but some days this summer I want it to be. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So 300 and some here. Huh?
Well, altogether, yeah, there's about 400 milkers.
Really?
Yeah. Some are dry, like what I showed you over here, but about 350 go through the milk parlor. And as you can see, there's fans all over the place that we use to ventilate the barn and keep it nice and cool.
There's a steady breeze blowing through here today.
Yes,
it's really,
there is.
really nice, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Very nice.
Have you always had Holsteins?
We do have some jerseys trickled in through there.
Oh, you do?
And we also have some red and white Holsteins.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Great animal. All right. Next,
we can take a visit over to the milking parlor if you'd like.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Tony LaPierre, this is not like your great-grandfather's milking parlor.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Although this is a older style parlor, it was used when we purchased it. It's still very functional parlor, and we use it to milk our herd. We milk about 20 cows at a time with this parlor.
Yeah, explain a little bit how that works. You do it twice a day.
So we do it twice a day, and it's a 6-hour shift. So it's not always the same person. Obviously, we have a shift style operating our labor. People stagger in. There's someone here 21 hours out of the day. So some people come in later in the afternoon, and where some people are coming early in the morning. And during that 6-hour shift, that's from setup to cleanup. It probably takes about 5 hours, maybe 4.5 to 5 hours to actually milk the herd. And what happens is we load 10 cows on one side, and then we prep the animal for milking. And they each have their own washcloth where we wipe them clean after we disinfect the udder, and we apply the units. And then while those animals are milking, we go on the other side and disinfect the ones that have been milked, let them out, and they travel out, and we load up the next side. So we're working back and forth, 10 and 10, to keep the parlor operating efficiently. And then we're able to milk about 70 cows per hour doing that. And when the cows kind of get done, we have the automatic takeoffs that sense that there's no more milk going through the line, so that we don't physically take those milkers off. They're taken off from the cow when they're done, so that way we're not over milking and causing harm to the mammary system of the cow, so that everything is fine there, and we can disinfect and make some nice high quality milk.
That's important too, and
very important. We're paid on quality, so
yeah.
The money's on the table for us to keep things very clean, to also produce a high quality product, because we have incentives, different tiers, depending on where your milk, where your bacteria levels and your cell count levels are, determines if what level you're going to get paid for quality purposes.
Is there a high fat content with Holstein milk?
No, not as high as, let's say, a Jersey on a percentage basis, but because they give quite a bit more volume of milk.
Oh, yeah, they sure do.
They actually probably will produce more pounds, because they're producing more pounds of milk. So in the end, we get paid by the pound of fat or the pound of protein that we produce. So it's an incentive for us, I think, and to milk the Holstein. Yeah.
So this setup you have here is about right for the number of cows you milk.
It is, yeah, it is. It's an older version. A lot of the newer style parlors today, they can really milk the cows very efficiently and milk large amounts of cows very quickly, and these cows can be right back into the pens where they can eat and drink, so that they're not standing in the milking area for a long period of time.
Well, if it works, do it.
That's right.
And this one's been here for a while, you said.
It has. We put it in back in '93, and it was used when I bought it. So we've had a few upgrades in the takeoffs and the pulsation, but it's still a very functional parlor. Yeah.
And the milk goes directly into a bulk tank?
It does. We have a 4,000 gallon bulk tank over here that's being washed right now because the milkman just picked it up, and we produce about 3,200 gallons of milk a day.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love the numbers. 3,200 gallons a day. That's wonderful. All right, what's the next step?
Well,
I love it so far.
We can probably take a walk up and look at our new calf barn up there.
I'd love to see it.
Okay.
All right. We're still at the Rusty Creek Farm in Champlain on the Stetson Road, talking with Tony LaPierre. This has been a real education for me and upgrades from the old farm days. So where are we now?
We're up in our calf barn facility where we raise all our wet and wean calves in this area up here. After they spend a couple days down with their mother, we get them prepared to come up here to put them on our calf feeding operation up here.
Talk a little bit about that. I notice they all have interesting collars on.
They do. What we have inside what we call our warm room here, we have a machine that identifies each calf individually, and they each have a program where when that calf approaches the calf stall, as the calf is right now, it mixes up its daily formula and allows basically these calves to feed nurse on demand as they choose. If they feel hungry, they can go eat, whereas when I was growing up, we fed our baby calves night and morning.
Oh, yes.
And those calves, by the time the night feeding came or the morning feeding came, they were pretty hungry, and they were pretty vocal about wanting to eat. So this has kind of relieved that vocalization that the calves have, kind of keeps them from overeating, and is more of a natural environment for their animal, as if they were with their mother in the pasture. They can go take a little drink when they so choose to.
Does it figure out how much they get a day? Or
it does. What it does, not only does it figure out how much they get a day, but we're able to look at the computer breakdown where it analyzes the speed that the animal eats its meal and the amount that it eats, so that if for whatever reason for that day she's off, where she didn't consume her meals, and maybe she consumed them but she did it at a much slower pace, we're able to see that, and it allows us to focus on those animals that maybe need attention, and what that usually tells us is that maybe there's a little respiratory problem going on there. They got a little bit of a cold or a cough, or maybe they've got a little bit of the scours where they're a little loose in their bowels and a little digestive upset, and they might need a little touch of Pepto-Bismol to bring them back into shape.
This is technology at its wildest. It's hard for me to believe. That's a nipple in there, so they get to go over and whenever they want to. They sometimes stand in line.
They sometimes stand in line.
My turn?
My turn is next, yeah. They're rated to handle about 25. That one nipple is rated to handle about 25 calves. That tends to be, you start getting up in that range, and then they don't quite aren't able to quite eat on their when they feel like it. It's more competition there. So I figure it more like 15 to 20 calves is a better number that one nipple can handle. And we've got 2 of them. And so we've tried to keep it fairly evenly, the calves evenly placed to minimize the competition.
I'm sure many of our viewers have never seen a setup like this before. I certainly haven't. How long have you had it?
This will be, it'll be 4 years in October. We've been utilizing this system, and they've got them a lot. They're a lot more predominant. You see them a lot more in overseas, but you're starting to see them more in the United States now with because we're kind of figuring out how to. They're certainly not perfect. There are some drawbacks to them, just like any other system. But the benefits, as far as labor saving, is big, and not only that, the calves seem to grow a little bit better.
Is it computerized? It has to be.
It is. It's computerized. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of things are computerized these days on the farm, aren't
there are. There's a lot of been a lot of advancements in robotics as far as robotic milking systems, and you will see in the future where a cow will enter a stall like this also, where she will get milked at her leisure and then go back to eating and drinking where she came from.
That technology is almost here?
Oh, it is here. It's been here for quite some time. Yeah.
That's impossible to believe.
Yeah.
So how many young ones do you have in here?
This barn here is the capacity of holding 100 young calves, and we've just added on to the other end because we've kind of outgrown it a little bit. And we need to have enough space for all the calves, otherwise we'll start running into some health issues if we don't. So
I noticed a little new construction there. So
yeah,
that's just barely getting done, huh?
Barely getting done. We've got another week or so to finish off the details in there, and then we'll be moving some animals in there.
Now, how does the feed get over here into this unit? Is it automatic, or do you have to fill it every day?
We can go right inside there and take a look if you want.
I want to see it, yeah. All right, we're inside. Basically,
what you have here is your milk hopper. This is where you put your formula, bagged formula in top here. And as a calf drinks, as it's doing right now, it's almost like a little cappuccino machine. That powder comes in, water is put in there to temperature, just like it would if it was nursing off its mother. And
unbelievable.
Mixes a small batch at a time, and then as that calf gets it down, it senses when it's empty and it mixes another batch. And this computer breakdown here tells us which animals are having trouble or need some attention. So that way we're not focusing all our time on looking at every animal. We're focusing our time on the ones that need our attention the most.
Do you have 2 machines like this?
Well, we only have one. So one machine handles 2 nipples, one on each side. And there's the lines here. You can see the lines. One goes to one side and one goes to the other side.
Well, that's absolutely amazing. You have any trouble with breakdowns?
Well, there is, with everything else, when this doesn't work, there's a lot of hungry babies out there. So you got to take the time to have a regularly scheduled maintenance. So we've had very little trouble in the 4 years. Nothing that we haven't been able to resolve in a max of 5 or 6 hours. And there's still, we're still capable of mixing up milk in a bucket.
I bet you are.
And feeding the calves by hand if we have to.
I love it. All right, that's great. Still a bright sunny day at the Rusty Creek Farm. It's about 2:15 in the afternoon. Just a perfect day for our cook's tour. Tony, what do we got here?
This is our replacement barn, or I'd like to say it's our young adult teenage barn. These are replacements that we're raising, that we raised from when they were calves, and this is them a little bigger stage of the game, and this is where we get them ready as to replace our mature cows. As our mature cows are no longer productive, these animals here will be taking their place, and so we're growing these animals out to get them up to nice, big, large size, so that they're will have enough space and width to have a calf when they come into our maternity area here shortly.
As I said before, it's a never-ending story.
Yes.
No beginning and no end. It just goes round and round and round,
right.
doesn't it?
It does. It's a continuous circle, and something we got to monitor. You can see our herdsman here right now is marking animals for tomorrow's herd check. And when he's not marking them with orange, he might be marking them with blue, because he's got to give them vaccinations this week. So we do a lot of different things to keep our animals healthy, immunize them for respiratory diseases, have a vet herd checks where we have ultrasound to check pregnancies on the animals, and and then, like you said, as the cycle goes, some get close to having their calves, and once a week we'll move them down to the maternity area, and every so often, we'll take and bring animals from our other barns in here to replenish as these animals get taken out.
It doesn't. A farm this size requires a lot more than one building these days, doesn't it?
It does. Yep. Each building has its specified group in there, and that's kind of how we design it that way.
This building isn't that old, is it?
No, this one was built in 2006, so
there you
it's
go. 6 years,
6 years old. Yes. Yep. Yep.
That's amazing. So how many would you have here? Did you
Well,
say?
in this barn right here, we have about 200.
200.
Yeah. So we've got, and it's in 2 different groups. So they're 100 group pens, and we got like I said, the yearlings or the teenagers are down at one end, and these guys here would be your young adults. These are animals that are just about ready to have their first calf.
I hope people of all ages are paying attention to this program with Tony LaPierre up here at the Rusty Creek Farm in Champlain, because it's not something I've seen before in many aspects. And Calvin and I have visited quite a few farms, but technology just goes rampant some years, and all kinds of new stuff comes along by the time we get out to another farm. So this is great. This is wonderful for me to see how the process works. And you do things a little bit differently from your neighbors, I bet.
Well, I don't know. I think we all in general are on the same page, use the same technologies, and everybody's got their own little twist to that, for sure. But in general, we've all got the same goals of having producing a healthy, productive animal that'll either yield you lots of milk or meat.
Keep the books in the black if you can.
That's right.
Every year.
That's right. Yeah.
You said other members of your family help you out. Who does all the bookwork?
Well, my wife is very much
I knew
involved.
We'd get around to that. Tell me about it.
My wife Mary, she's very involved with the bookwork. Not only is she a financial aid advisor down at Clinton Community College, she's a financial aid advisor at Rusty Creek Farm. So we spend at least half a day a week to a full day a week going over bills or calling up different vendors that we do business with that we may have questions on a receipt, or may need to get some records verified or up to date. So there's a lot of the details that she takes care of for the farm, and my mother also is involved with that some.
It's always been true. The gals on the farm have always done a lot of work to keep things going, and we can't leave them out of the equation.
That's
can we?
for sure.
You know what I wanted to ask you, and I didn't. Where does the milk go from here?
Well, our milk gets picked up by Roberts and Sons, who are milk haulers, and they bring it over to St. Albans, where it's basically just checked there for antibiotics and what have you, but then it's shipped down to Massachusetts, where it's bottled for Hood milk, and that's
no kidding.
That's where our milk goes. Yeah.
Has it always been that way?
No. We in the past we also a lot of it went to Middlebury, where there's a cheese plant over there, where it was processed into cheese, and even way before that we were a Bayview member.
You know, we were talking about that today, finally getting that Bayview story told way back when. So many wonderful creameries here in the North Country,
Yes,
so many dairies and so on. How about, how many cattle do you have to buy every year?
We buy no cattle. Actually, we export quite a few cattle.
Yeah, we're getting around to the nitty-gritty.
60 head this year went to Turkey.
Come on.
So what they do is
Isn't that amazing?
round up these animals, that the excess that we don't need, because our animals are fairly healthy, so we don't need all our replacement stock, and they'll put 5,000 to 6,000 on a boat and
no kidding.
and send them over to.
I'm glad I asked that question.
to
I had
Turkey.
no idea.
Yes.
No kidding.
Yes.
That's been going on for a while.
The last couple of years, it's been a pretty good way to move our excess livestock. Yep. So they're just developing their dairy system, their dairy market there, and they really like the genetics that they get from the United States versus other countries, and they feel they're getting the most bang for their buck when they bring these animals in.
You know, Tony, I talked a minute ago about me adding to my education every time I interview somebody like you, a bright person like you. But I imagine you got to study every day too. Do you read all the latest bulletins from Cornell and?
Well, some from that we get bombarded by advertising with different magazines, and we also are very active in watching the commodity market, the numbers of what's going on as far as grain prices and milk prices and that kind of thing.
You gotta know.
And there's there's a trend that farmers are moving more towards hedging their price of milk, so that you can lock in a profit as opposed to being at the mercy of the
It's about time.
of the market. So then you may not you may miss the high, but you may lock in you may lock in that profit where you're not going
like the stock market.
you're not going to hit the low either.
Well, farmers have always had to get up early, and you have to get up a little earlier than most just to figure out what's going to happen that day. And you have to, more than anything else, I guess, pay attention. You're at the mercy of nature and so many other factors, aren't you? Some almost beyond your control.
Oh yeah, there's only so much you can control, and you just make the best of it.
All right, the next chapter of our Rusty Creek episode will be about equipment. Stand by. Yeah, I can hear the sound effects on cue, Tony. What's this all about here? What are all these little igloos for?
These igloos are where we put our calves right after, about 24 hours after they are born. This is where we keep them in an isolated environment before we bring them up to our calf barn. These hutches provide that environment, allows us to ear tag our calves, get the navels nice and dry, give them their first vaccination, and get them nice and strong and aggressive on the bottle holder there where we hand feed them, and before we bring them up to the calf barn and introduce them to a group housing environment.
I told you, right on cue, letting us know that they're there, huh?
Yes.
So you got about 15 of these. Does that number vary?
Typically, we only have about 5 to 7 in here at a time, while the rest sit idle to keep them give them a chance to air out, and in between calves we wash and clean them so that we have as clean of environment as possible when those newborn calves go in there, so to make sure we start them off good and healthy.
And they're out here in the wintertime too?
They are. The single most important factor of raising a calf, or any cattle in general, is ventilation, and as long as these animals are out of the wind and have lots of nice dry bedding to lay in underneath, they'll thrive in the cold weather. If you were to get inside that hutch, we call them, it's very sustainable if it's, obviously if it's nice and dry in there. Yep.
Somebody has to go in there and clean them out?
Well, we add bedding to them. We start them off clean, and that animal will stay in there, and we keep adding bedding to it.
Sure.
To keep them dry, and then once they leave, then we take that igloo up, clean out what was in there, and start all over again.
It's a pretty darn good invention, really, and they've been around for quite a few years.
Yeah, they have. They probably do a better job of raising calves than, let's say, maybe our calf barn, but there's a lot more labor involved.
Oh, sure, I can tell that.
So when you start having to raise 40, 50 of them in this kind of environment, it requires a lot more work. And not only that, once they get a little older, manure starts to become an issue.
Yes, it does.
When they start eating more, they start producing more. So, and we're better off handling that with other equipment.
Before we go over and start looking at equipment, let's talk about the breeding process. And you say you replenish your stock all the time. You don't even have to buy any. So how does it work?
We have a reproductive program where our animals. Our goal is to have them each have a calf every year, and so what we do to monitor that and make that happen, we have stud services that provide us with genetic information on bulls that they have to offer. And from that, we choose our sires.
It's not chance anymore, is it?
No, that we would like to introduce to the herd, and then as cattle come in heat, we have a technician that comes from a technician service that comes in and will AI or artificially inseminate our cattle. And then from that, through ultrasound, through the vet, we determine if that animal conceives from the artificial insemination.
It's absolutely amazing, and mystifies me that we've come this far.
Yeah. So and from that, we're able to monitor the animals that we get from different stud services and determine if that investment in that family, that bloodline was a good one, and if we're going to continue to purchase from that bloodline, or are we going to go on to the next latest and greatest
latest and greatest. I love
bloodline.
It. Well, let's talk about the beef now. How do you sell your beef?
Each week we determine we determine what we're going to keep as far as replacement animals, and move into the herd, and then we ship off the cattle that maybe are not as productive on the milk side, but have a good make good candidates to go for beef, and then we have a local person that'll come and pick those animals up once a week, and depending on what the auction is for that week, we'll get paid based on so much per pound. And those animals there are also I graded for depending on their quality of carcass, size, weight, shape, that kind of thing. Then we also have our local beef where we have people. We have some Angus crosses that we have here on the farm that we raise in our pastures, and twice a year in March and September. We take orders. People buy interest, either a quarter of a cow or a half of a cow, and then we ship them off to the USDA processing plant over there in Winthrop, New York, Tri-Town
Oh yeah,
Packing.
we know where Winthrop is.
And then we have the animals processed and brought back to our customers and they usually will get a quarter and have it put it in their freezer either for the year or the half a year, depending on how much beef they consume.
Not a simple operation. It's complicated, probably gets more complicated all the time as you watch the markets and try to make sure everything stays healthy on the farm.
Yeah.
Let's talk about equipment in a few minutes, all right?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Sunshine and Tony LaPierre, what a wonderful combination. Tony, what are those metal things over here?
These are our grain bins, and these are the equipment storage that we have when we purchase every 10 days or so. We purchase protein supplements and our vitamins and our minerals that we use to balance off the cows' diets, get augured in off tractor trailers into the tops of those bins, and then we use after we get our forages in our mixer down there, we pull it up to these grain bins and we top it off with the supplement that they need and mix it all together and then deliver the feed to the cattle.
You know, as we stepped around the corner here, I was thinking it wasn't that many, well, yes, I'm old, but it wasn't that many generations ago when there wasn't, most farms didn't even have a tractor. They did everything they did with horses, mules, and I can remember when the farm I worked at got its first tractor, and I have some rather humorous stories about that first day with the tractor on the farm. But now you need not just one tractor, but you need many and so many other pieces of equipment that go along with it, right?
That's correct. Our farm chooses to put up all our feed, so because of that, we have to have quite an extensive lineup of equipment to operate, and each piece of equipment is rated for X amount of horsepower in order for that piece of equipment to operate properly. And then we do have some machinery that only does one thing, such as this mower conditioner right here in front of us. I mean, its sole purpose is to mow hay down 4 times a year, so it'll mow about 550 acres 4 times a year, so it's you're upwards around 2,200 acres of hay it mows over the course of the crop year. And then we have all other kinds of pieces of equipment that we have to use to fit our fields, to get them prepared to put corn in the ground and have other purposes, but that's one thing about farming. It's and especially putting in crops, is that you have all this equipment that you have to maintain and has to be ready to go, and it's only used very few weeks out of the year. So although it sits there for quite a bit of the time, when it is time to use it, is of the utmost importance that things are working properly and that you're able to go when Mother Nature allows you to.
You know, once again, when I was a kid working on the farm and walking around farms, one farmer in the neighborhood or one dealer would have a modern piece of equipment, and it would go from farm to farm to farm when it was time to combine and so on. So they shared equipment. Nowadays, you got to own most of what you use.
Well, we do, but there is still quite a few. Some of the smaller farms, it does make sense for them to do just what you're saying. They will hire a custom operator to come in. It just doesn't make sense for them to own that large piece of equipment. They're not covering enough acres for it to be justified for them to make that purchase, and so what they do is they hire a custom operator to come in. Of course, the biggest downfall was that with that is you're at their mercy of when they can get there. Yeah. So there's a trade-off. If you can if the window is large enough where you don't get hurt too bad, then and you can afford to wait, then you do that, and it works out for you. And a lot of countries today do that. Some of the smaller countries, say Ireland, over in England, they have 2-3 of these large custom operators that go from farm to farm to farm and harvest crops for the farmers there.
You know, we talked about weather several times during the course of our tour here of your Rusty Creek farm, but what is this warming trend in the winter times over the last few years done for you?
It's hard to put a real, I guess I'm not really sold on the warming trend. I kind of think that, this past winter was warm, and the winter before that was warm, but the winter before that was
terrible.
Was
and
very
we've seen
cold.
A lot of those. But I mean, I look out at the river behind my house, and when it doesn't freeze over, I'm happy.
Yes.
So I just wondered if it has any gross effect on you if you have a really warm winter.
It does, because it allows. Not only does it allow a mellow winter usually allows a better crop year coming up, but it also allows the pests that we, whether it's weeds or insects, also flourish when you have a easy winter like that. So there are different things. Wildlife we struggle with. Not only do we feed our cattle here, but we've got all kinds of varmints and birds that we have to manage. Come in and look to step up to the buffet.
Oh yes, they do. You know something, when you talked about equipment, we didn't necessarily mention trucks, but you have to have more than one truck, because you do trucking. You got to move your stuff from one field to another here, don't you?
Yes, yeah. The trucks primarily we use to haul our feed in, but most of our equipment, our self-propelled equipment, is we're able to travel from farm to farm. It's close enough where we don't physically have to put it on a trailer and truck it, but we do have our trucks where we use. A lot of farms used to have tractors and self-propelled wagons that they pulled behind the tractor to haul their feed. We typically have our dump trucks where we chop right into the dump box and then haul that feed back to the silos down here and dump it in there and pack it.
We gripe and complain about how much it costs for a gallon of gas, and then we look at the price of diesel fuel. I don't know much, but I know that the processing isn't as complicated as it is for gasoline, so diesel fuel should be at least 40 cents less, but guess what?
It's more expensive.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
So you have bulk tanks here?
We have our fuel system, our fuel dike set up that we don't carry a large amount of fuel, but we have the capacity of holding about 2,500 gallons at a time.
For your needs.
Yeah.
Just one more thing that goes into the formula, right?
That's right. That's right.
Is there anything else that you want to add that I forgot to ask you about today?
I don't think so. I just think
it's a business that goes 365 times a year from day to night. Somebody's got to be doing something to keep a business like this running, and it is a business.
It is a business.
It's not the biggest farm in Clinton County, but it's a sizable farm, and because of people like you and your dad and back 6 generations, it's still here, which is more than we can say for some of these family farms.
Yeah.
Which have had to fold up their tents in the night and steal away. And every time there's an auction, that kills me. Right?
Yep. One more piece of history. If a lot of times now when we go to the fields and stuff, we still talk about employees will ask, what farm are we cropping today? And it'll be the Bayshard farm or the Thibodeau farm or the farms that have folks that have farmed it in the past that no longer are farming it, and we've either rented their property to crop or purchased the property or something like that.
You got to keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for inviting us here today.
Well, thanks for coming.
For all the people we didn't get a chance to interview who have their hands in this process, you can pass along our thanks from Calvin and myself from Hometown Cable and all the viewers who have really learned something by this little tour today at your Rusty Creek farm.
All right, thanks.
Thanks so much, Tony. We'll wrap it up in just a minute. Well, that is the story from the Rusty Creek farm up here on the Stetson Road in Champlain. And our tremendous thanks to Tony and the whole crew here for allowing us to walk on their paved yards all the way across, see all the cattle, see all the equipment, and get a story the likes of which we may never get again. A wonderful history of 6 generations on this farm and still going strong. Maybe the next 4 or 5 generations. Tony's going to get to work on that tonight. Thanks to all our viewers, always for your comments and suggestions. Thanks especially for those people who write their generous checks and send them to Calvin Castine in care of Hometown Cable on the Ridge Road, not very far from here, so we can keep this program going. It's been 15 years for me and more years than Calvin can count on both hands since 1983. Thank goodness for Hometown Cable. And as I always say at the end, who knows where we're going to be next time for our little corner.